Malo Lele, my name is Jione Havea. I'm a migrant to this cluster of islands that the colonizers called Australia. I pay my respects to the land, the waters, the sky, and the underworld, the underground, and all residents of this cluster of islands. I want to also thank Charlene and the steering committee for this group for the opportunity and the invitation to share some thoughts with you. I'm presenting an element of what I call moana criticism, and I trust that you're familiar or have heard of this Moana movie that Disney did in 2016. So we are reclaiming the label Moana because that's from our part of the world. And I'm presenting an element of Moana criticism, and I'll let you decide if this is what you call queer criticism, or if it's queer enough. That's for you to decide. Part of the reason is for us, queer criticism is a foreign approach. The practice and reality is something that we experience and we live, but we don't call it queer criticism. And the moment I start calling it queer, I will be accused of putting on what Fanon called the white mask. It's not that I'm afraid of putting on the white mask. It's just that at the moment, my work is focusing on the native realities more so than whether it fits what the white folk decide is appropriate scholarship. So that's another matter for discussion as well. I want to start with a working definition and of where I'm coming from, and I'm going to borrow Stephen Moore's definition of queer. Queer is a subtle cipher, both for what stands over against the normal and the natural to oppose and thereby define them, and what inheres within the normal and the natural to subvert and indeed pervert them. This opposition and subversion privileging, but by no means being confined to the mercurial sphere of the sexual. So what I'm trying to do in this presentation is to take queer, as you call it, away from the sexual, from the bodily, from the human realm, and bring that to our world, the Pacifica space and Pacifica ways. And Stephen gives us that, or gives me that permission by saying that it is by no means being confined to the mercurial sphere of the sexual. If you see Stephen's cover, the cover for Stephen's book is definitely a bodily, human-oriented work. What I'm trying to do is take it out of that, or bring your attention away from the human to the mercurial sphere of Pacifica. You probably heard of this island, Kiribati. Tuvalu and Kiribati are in the forefront of climate change, the two island groups that will most likely be first to disappear. This is an image of what's called a manapa, a meeting, a village, a meeting place. So that's the big house to the right. On the left is where the cooking takes place. So when people come to meet, this is the small house to the side where the food are brought and prepared and given to the people who are, the officials, the big shots. It's this hut, the kitchen, that I want to draw your attention to. And if you can see, this is what the floor of that kitchen would look like. There are bamboos being tied or nailed to the floor. So there are things like food crumbs will just fall off, and then dogs and other insects will come and have their meal as well. When I visited one of the outer islands of this group, this island of Wonotoa, I wanted to visit some of the elders so I can hear some of their stories. So I went to the guy facing you on screen. This old man is one of the elders and is always full of stories, these people. This guy immediately was my host, retired minister. When we got there, this guy was the old man, was tying up the bamboos. You can see on the floor, those are the bamboos, and they're the kafa, we call them, mangi mangi, the Fijians call them, that made from coconut husk. And he was tying up the bamboos on the floor, retying them. So what he did was he'll stick down the string, and then somehow the string pops up. And then he'll tie and then stick it down, and it pops up again and tie. And then I thought this old man was doing some, native magic, until I moved back and looked under the hut. And there was his grandson under the floor. So the old man will stick the string down, the young man will push the string back up. Is this queer reading? For us, it's about the meaning. What makes society works, it requires us to look under. Yeah, look under the kitchen, look under the house, look under what liberation critics, under history, under text. But what we do in our moana hermeneutics is that we call people to look down and to realize that what's down, what's at the bottom, is really filthy. Yeah, I see a lot of calling for, top and bottom, to look at the bottom, but the bottom seems to be clean in what I read in text. What we do now is to call for people to look down, look under, and to come to terms with the messiness that's under the house, that's under the text. That's the mercurial sphere of what's under. Now, again, I leave it to you to decide. The second step that I want to do is, so this is bringing us to our space. The second is to bring your attention to what I call sacred space through our sacred texts, or what you might call sacred stories. So this is one of the there are many creation stories from my island of Tonga. This is my grandmother's version of one of those creation stories. And now I'll walk you through, I'll read slowly, and we go through and offer an initial reading for you. So in the beginning, there were only moana, which is the term for the sea, and pulotu. Pulotu is the name of the underworld, yeah, where Maui goes into the underworld, under Lalotai in the Disney version. And that's the place where spirits gather to weave. At the southern edge of moana, a reef rose up to become the island of Ata. Yeah, a reef rose up, and when you tell this story to natives of Pacifica, they immediately know or say that this reef is where Pulotu has sent something up above the sea. Yeah, and that becomes an island. One day, a plover bird, a kiu, we named in my grandmother's version, it's Tangalo Atulongolongo. Tangalo Atulongolongo is the name of the bird. From the sky, visited Ata. It dropped a seed onto the island. The next time it visited, it found that a creeper had grown become the seed. It pecked at the root of this creeper until it split in two. Now, let me pause there. There are four spaces, there are four bodies that collaborate in this creation sacred text. There's moana, the sea. There's Pulotu, the underworld. There's the island, yeah, the island Ata is named. And then the bird coming from the sky. So these four bodies, they are ecological bodies, yeah? These are the four bodies that interact in the creation of the island that led to the creation of the humans. Now, that's there's a lot to unpack there, but for the purpose of this short presentation, let me move on. So there was a creeper. The Tangaloa Atulongolongo pecked at the root of this creeper until it split in two. A few days later, Tangaloa Atulongolongo returned to find that the root had rotted and a fat, juicy maggot, uanga, was curled up in it. The bird pecked the maggot in two. From the top section, a person was formed called Kohai, and my grandmother was adamant that she was female. The bottom section also turned into a person called Koau, and he was male. So male is bottom, female is top. Then the bird felt a crumb, a momo, on its beak. It shook the crumb off, and it turned into a third person called Momo. And when we asked our grandmother, was this a female or male, she said simply that she has forgotten. I have forgotten. This is a typical storytelling in Talanoa fashion from our part of the world style, that there's always an element that's forgotten. It becomes like a riddle, so that the listeners, the hearers, will be invited into the world of the story, so they can decide for themselves. Later on, as I grew up, I thought, well, maybe that forgotten element, the momo, was queer. And she was not telling me that it was, or me and my cousins, that it was the third person was queer, but maybe it was queer, and she was allowing us that space to think. Anyways, let me finish the story off. Kohai, Koau, and Momo were the first humans on Ata. Maui, a demigod trickster, brought partners for them from Pulotu, and they became the ancestors of the native peoples of Tonga. I want to invite you to think of three things at this point. First, there were four bodies that led to the creation: the sea, the underworld, the land, and the sky. That four bodies create this mercurial sphere, to use Stephen Moore's language. Second, as humans, as natives, we are sons and daughters of a fat, juicy maggot. We're not sons or daughters or images of some divine word or magic, but of a natural reality, which is a juicy, fat maggot gave birth to us humans. And at the end of our journey, there'll be more than one fat, juicy maggots coming back to reclaim us to the world of the sky, the sea, the underworld, and the land. And third, well, that's the third element, that we are images of the four moana bodies. No, there's a third one. I'll leave it with you to reflect on this question. How did Tangaloa Atulongolongo drop the seed onto the island? Did the seed come on its beak or on its claws or wings? How did Tangaloa Atulongo, in your opinion, how might have Tangaloa Atulongo carried the seed to the island? Now, think as queerly as you want, but that's the element of Talanoa, where the one who tells the story, leaves space for people who are listening or reading to decide for themselves what would work. This is where moana criticism is a lot different from this controlling biblical criticism of approaches of biblical studies, where we try to know all the answers and provide them for our readers. I share with you this artwork to kind of see the mercurial sphere in Talanoa and in moana criticism. This is a work by Jione Havea titled Momo, the same name as in that third person who my grandmother forgot that their gender. I share the same family name with Jione because his father was my cousin, first cousin. Jione is an artist that works with glass, and this is a mirror that he found on the side of the road, and he put a keyhole on the mirror in the center of it, and then printed keys on as if they're swimming to seeking entry into this keyhole. Now, how do you read this? I mean, you can immediately think, oh, this is a heteronormative kind of image of someone, sperm swimming to this hole. Or is it? Or what kind of hole is it? It's at the center. And I leave that with you. And I look forward to engaging with you at some point as this virtual meeting gets into that next level. Thank you. Malo abito, Ofat.